Hello, everyone. Here we are with Jennie of Hidden Path Astrology and myself of Astrolore. And we are here today to talk about the Scorpio full moon. Can you give me a date and time on that, Jennie?
Yes, I can. It's coming up on Monday, April 26th, and it's 11:31 p.m., so it's just before midnight.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, great. So we are at the full moon. This is the full illumination of the cycle that began 2 weeks ago on April 11th when we had the new moon in Aries. So tell me a little bit, Jennie, about the path that the new moon, that the lunar phases bring us through.
Yeah. Well, one thing we always like to do is compare it a little bit to the plant cycle because it just kind of helps give you a visual. At the new moon, we are planting a seed in the soil. And then that seed starts to grow. So we see the moon growing in light at that time. It's from dark where you can't see it all. And then you see that little sliver. And then you see the first quarter square. And then you arrive at full moon when you really see the whole thing illuminated. And that is, it's kind of tied in with when you see the flower blooming. That is what that part of the cycle is. And then after that, it starts to wane and it gets darker and darker and darker until you get to the full balsamic moon, and the cycle starts over. So the first half of the cycle is concerned with the building of the light, the second half with the releasing of the light and more about meaning than the building part. So,
Right. And
yeah.
I love thinking about that cycle. One of the things that, for those of you who are listening that are, studying astrology on a deeper level than just watching the lunar phases, really understanding how this cycle is the cycle that all the pairs of planets go through. This is the cycle between the sun and the moon from our perspective, but every pair of planets, you can take any two planets and they all go through the same cycle of coming together, moving apart in a growth phase, coming to that full illumination, and then breaking down for the next cycle. And some of those cycles are super long cycles, and the lunar cycle that we look at is just this little cycle of 28 days basically. And so it kind of gives us a template to look at the other cycles.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And I think what Lori and I are often trying to do here is just sort of teach ourselves and you how to kind of use these cycles to kind of move your life forwards, and you can take advantage of it. And it's this nice thing you can see in the sky. You can watch the cycle unfold in the sky. So that's one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the new moon, you want to get really clear. You want to find out exactly what house in your chart that new moon falls in, and you plant a seed. And we go through that with our new moon videos. And then at the full moon, 2 weeks later, you can see how far that cycle has come, what has developed on that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So, do you want to talk about, since this is the full moon in Scorpio, let's just talk about Scorpio before we even open up the chart.
That sounds good to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and
Scorpio.
before we get into Scorpio, while you're thinking about this, if you know your chart, if you have your chart, find where that Scorpio is in your chart and think about this in that area of your life. I'm sorry,
Sounds
I
good.
realize I interrupted you.
Oh, no, it's okay. So the moon in Scorpio, especially in a natal chart, is the need to be regarded as deep and significant and reliable, and really is this powerful, powerful placement. Um, and it's not always the easiest. Like on the more kind of more egoic side, it can be very brooding and vindictive and kind of have an obsessive component to it. But then when you move into the more enlightened side of it, it's this idea of being invested in making an impact and being passionate and empowered. So when we see the full moon of Scorpio, I like to think about what is being empowered in your life, shining a light on something to be empowered. That hopefully you started at the new moon in Aries.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a short. What do you have to add to that?
Oh, Scorpio. Scorpio is such an interesting sign. I think, all the signs have a more difficult side and a more enlightened side, all the signs. I think of Scorpio, though, as having more extremes on each end of that, which is probably one of the reasons Scorpio's got a pretty rough reputation.
Yeah.
Scorpio is in modern astrology, Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, which is the planet of destruction in order for necessary transformation. In the ancient rulerships, Scorpio is ruled by Mars, which is very, determined and hot, and it's going to make things happen. So, I really use both of those as rulerships for Scorpio because they both really resonate. And, I was talking to a student actually yesterday about Scorpio and just how, people think of the symbol of Scorpio as the scorpion. But you think about the scorpion, all it does is sting you. It stings you and you die, okay? So that's kind of looking at Scorpio from a pretty dark perspective. And I really like to think of Scorpio's symbol as the phoenix. The phoenix is my favorite one to think of. It's got to go into those dark, deep, intense, profound, and scary places in order to come out of that in this, the beautiful mythical bird. The other symbol that I like for Scorpio is the serpent, because any scorpion component requires transformation, shedding the skin of the old to come forth in the new. So, those are some of my ideas, some of my thoughts around Scorpio. So yeah, look at your chart. Wherever Scorpio is in your chart is not only highlighted at this full moon, but it's just a place where you really need to go deep and find things within yourself that need to be transformed.
Yeah, there's quite a regenerative possibility with Scorpio. It really is what needs to be moved out of the way so something new can come in. And I really like that you brought the rulership up too, because if you think about the scorpion, it's battled up for armor, which kind of brings in that more martial aspect, and that is where Mars really is the ruler of Scorpio. Kind of shows you that. But yeah, it's it's kind of the sign with X-ray vision too. Like it shows you the underbelly, it shows you the skeleton beneath the skin. It's very penetrating, and it doesn't let things off the hook. It really kind of shows you what's undergirding whatever's happening. So yeah, that's a pretty good summary.
It's a very powerful sign. Yeah. Okay. On that note, do we want to open up the chart and take a look at what's happening with this full moon?
Yeah, let's do it. So again, the time I gave was Eastern Daylight Time, so Monday, right before midnight, the 26th. So depending where you are in the world, it's going to fall at slight at different times for you. And this is just where we're located. But here's the chart, and probably the first thing you notice, or what I notice, is all the Taurus.
Look at all that Taurus. Yes, indeed.
So we are in Taurus season. Sun is in Taurus, which is a strong indicator that we're bang in the middle of spring. It is springtime, and it is a fixed sign, Taurus, and so is Scorpio. My new keyword for fixed signs is relentless. So that's here we are with all that big chunk of Taurus sitting there.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to look at that chunk of Taurus planets and think about, Taurus is all about beauty and sensuality, and it really wants to be engaged in calming the senses and feeling the beauty and sensual stuff. And yet Uranus is right there in the middle of that, which is really probably, Uranus's job is to wake you up. So it's waking you up to what is in the way of that kind of steadfastness of Taurus.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. So, what's great about full moons is they really bring us in touch with this idea of polarity. And I just feel that all of us as humans, we have to struggle and wrestle with these opposing forces. And full moons really let us see that. And so when you just talked about the sensuality and the groundedness and the steadfastness of Taurus, what Scorpio brings is the much more kind of mystical component to it. It's much less tangible. But where Taurus is sensuality, Scorpio sexuality. And clearly you want both. You want both of those things, let's say in your relationships, in your intimate relationships, so you really have that whole depth of experience. So it really just runs the gamut. It really expands that breadth of experience to a lot of different levels. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
that
have?
the oppositions are always about balancing two things that are different and yet similar.
Yeah.
There's always, I think of the opposition as the two sides of the same coin. Yeah, there's the
Yeah.
intensity and sexuality and intensity of Scorpio, and then there's the calm beauty and sensuality of Taurus. And they're two sides of the same coin. Their oppositions are always in the same modality. So, like Jennie mentioned, this is a fixed. Um, these are both in fixed signs, but oppositions are always in the same modality.
hmm Yeah, and really the lesson behind polarities is that you're trying to work with both energies and come into a whole balanced state. So the balanced state of Taurus and Scorpio, if you're nice and grounded in the earth sign of Taurus, then it allows you to go into these deep investigative states without losing yourself. So it really is this kind of empowered place with the groundedness. It's empowered groundedness, or some you could come up with a phrase like that.
Mhm.
Um, and I really like that idea of just trying to do that dance of working with both ends of it, and that is how you become your most whole person, really.
Sort of a awakening. I don't know. Something I was just looking at this, thinking about listening to Greta, what's her last name?
Oh,
Thunberg.
Thunberg, yeah,
I
she's
was
awesome.
thinking about her with this Uranus in the middle of this Taurus season. Taurus is about the earth, it's about the planet, and Uranus is about waking up. And I I know her time of birth is not available, but it would be interesting to look at her chart, even with a sunrise chart.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be
Yeah,
really
because that Scorpio full moon is really asking us, like, what do we need to change? What do we need to transform? Because clearly things are not in balance. And that is really what we're looking at. I always think of the moon in these charts when we're doing these videos of kind in a sense representing the human choices. Like there's all these big forces in play, and then there's like this moon going, hey, you should do this in your life to like try to impact the whole or the collective. Like it kind of brings in this personal note to it. It's one of the things I really think is useful about it.
that's great.
Uh,
Okay, what else is going on?
yeah.
One way that we like to think about this also is think back to the new moon, which was in Aries, so it was down here.
hmm
And from that point, when the moon separated from the sun, where has it gone? Well, it conjuncted these other Taurus planets and Mars. What does
hmm
that tell us?
I always think of it as this little journey where the moon is absorbing each thing. So it picked up this message from Uranus, like, hey, we need to wake up to the realities of that we all live on this earth together. And Venus is saying, yeah, and we need to work that with our relationships. We need to be in relationship with each other. And Mercury's saying, yeah, and we got to figure out how to talk about it and listen to each other and have an exchange of ideas. And then Mars is like, all right, what are you going to do about it? So it's kind of this little,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's yeah. So that's the journey it's been on so
Mhm.
far. And then it will start releasing energy as it goes the rest of the cycle.
Mhm.
So, what else is going on with this new moon? We've got a
A
pretty
lot.
dynamic statement here, don't we, Jennie?
Mhm.
Look at that.
Yeah, so we have basically it's making a T square with Saturn. So right off the bat, I wanted to say that this full moon is very much tangled with the theme of 2021 and 2022, which is the face off between Saturn in Aquarius squaring Uranus and Taurus. That's the theme for the next 2 years, this tension, this battle between those two components. What do you have sort of like a statement about those two components, Lori, that you think of? Uranus and Saturn?
Saturn and Uranus in a
Yeah.
square. It's a very culturally, it's Uranus is definitely one of the outer planets, one of the generational planets. Saturn is sort of in between, but this is definitely a cultural stress. You can look at in your own chart at what house Aquarius is in, what house is Taurus in, and you can see where it's playing out in your individual life. But culturally, this is, a major struggle again between the past and the future, between trying to stabilize and trying to change. Yeah, this is a hard thing that we're in.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
When you were just describing it that way, I was thinking about it sort of like we've imposed our will upon how things are going to be for a long time. But the truth of the matter is that their force is much more powerful than us. And there's a very complex ecosystem that we are living on. And we're being asked to just tune into those realities outside of our human systems. And I think that might be the meaning of Saturn in Aquarius. It's like you've got to go outside of the systems that were represented last year by Saturn in Capricorn, and now it's moved into Aquarius. And this is something we've got to look beyond just our own system, because it's not working anymore. And if we can ignore it, but not for long. I think the time of ignoring it is over, and that's what the symbolism is of this square. That it is a time of chafing and of these real stresses that are fracturing things around us. And that each as individuals, we each have roles in this. And we each have things to do in our own lives. And that's what the beauty of astrology is. You can take those big cycles and you can put them in the context of your own life and help you feel like you have meaning, and that it's not quite so overwhelming, that things that you do matter. So,
and on that note, I just want to say, if anyone is listening to this video that was born in 1977, you're playing an important role. I just had a client yesterday that was born in 1977, and this square between Saturn and Uranus is exactly lined up with where those planets were, in aspect. Uranus is opposed its place and Saturn is opposed its place in 1977. So if you were born in 1977, this is a really significant year in your life to make some change in the cultural fabric.
Oh, gosh, Laura, it's so interesting, because 1977 is also the year that Chiron was discovered. And Chiron symbolizes the wound in individual charts, but in our collective chart, that this time is about healing this massive wound in the way humans are doing things between each other, what we're doing to the planet, all the things. So, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That I hadn't thought of that. That's really interesting. Yeah, there's something about this year in 1977 that's very, very linked. I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more.
Will do.
Yeah,
So this full moon really is just a real statement on a smaller level of this tension that we're seeing. And what we're seeing on Monday the 26th is whatever's coming to light from the last 2 weeks, but also from the larger 6-month cycle.
Do you have a date on that larger 6-month cycle?
No, it would have been the new moon of Scorpio, though, wouldn't it?
I think it was November 13th.
Oh, good memory.
I might be off by a few days, but I think it was right around then.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a good enough idea to understand, like, hey, let's look at these last 5.5, 6 months and what has gone on in society in that time. So that is also a very useful way to look at the cycles.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you want to talk about the personal impact a little bit?
Well, we can. Do you want to go through all the signs, or do you want to just let people do that themselves?
Oh, I just, yeah, we can let people do that themselves, but just generally to think about where this full moon is landing in your chart. Where do you have Scorpio in your chart? Another thing to think about is like, if you have been watching these, what action did you choose to take during that Aries new moon when there was a bunch of Aries going on? What stake in the ground did you put in? What has happened 2 weeks later to whatever it is that action that you take, and just witness what's happened. You know, if you made a conscious decision to do something, there's valuable learning in whatever your experience was.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really really astounding if you really track this stuff and really pay attention to what's going on in your life, what's going on around you. It's pretty profound.
yeah, I
For
agree.
yeah, for me, that the new moon 2 weeks ago happened in Aries, which is my eighth house, and this full moon happens in my third house, which is siblings and communication.
Mm.
I'll tell you, there's a deep, dark, weird, intense story in that for me personally. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but just, those issues of the eighth house and the third house, other people's values, communication, and even siblings, that's incredibly profoundly impacting me right now. How about you, Jennie?
Yeah, well, I've had a similar experience of totally different topics, but a similar big sort of aha moment in these 2 weeks. So I have Aries in the 10th house of career. I had made some decisions about where I want to take my astrology business and was all set to act on those things. And I kind of hit go on a couple of those, it was really interesting because actually neither thing panned out at all how I thought. And so it's just been fascinating to kind of watch that. But now what's happened is now the Scorpio full moon is landing in my fifth house of creativity. And what I really have profoundly come to understand, that this is my time to create. I am really creating this business. And I really need to pour my energy into these creative projects that I'm doing through astrology. And one of them is doing these videos with Laurie, but there are other ones too. But that's the message for me, is not further sending my energy out, but to continue to conduct it into this fifth house of creativity and creative projects.
Awesome.
So it's been a very powerful message for me, and a real just kind of underscore of like, hey folks, like this stuff works, and if you take advantage of this, just working with these intentions and consciously moving your life forwards, and witnessing yourself and being willing to learn, like that, it can be a very potent, useful process. So
Yeah.
I hope that you all will do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on that note, I think we've covered everything we need to cover. I just want to say, if you want more of um, what I have to offer, what Jennie and I do together, check out my Patreon page. I'd really like to see some of you head over there and support my work there. I do an exclusive on Patreon monthly video that covers all the changes that happen in the course of the month.
That's
So you can find me on Patreon, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. And you, Jennie, with
Yeah.
Hidden Path Astrology?
Yeah, so I'm writing a blog right now, which you can find on my homepage of hiddenpathastrology.com, and also posting that on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm in the process of adding in these other projects that Laurie and I are doing together, so there'll be more content on my website. But if you want to come and see me for a consultation, that would be great. You can sign up to the website, or you can also do that with Laurie, that she also offers those. So yeah, come and visit us. Sign up for something if you want to figure out how to use astrology to shed light into your life. um, I think you can maybe find some of those things with each of us. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes. If you've never gotten a consultation, get one. If you're looking for a teacher, we are both teaching astrology as well. So be in touch, and thank you all so much for sticking through this video. I hope you've learned something. Thank you.
Thank you.